run CEO groups, etc. Delighted to have you here, and this is actually a really fun panel. These three people know each other well. They know each other well in a positive sense. I'm just going to do brief introductions, but the key point is, for this conversation, that Charles de Gaspé-Beaubien is the entrepreneur who was turned down by Glen Champagne and then was funded. So it's actually a wonderful story, I think, for an entrepreneur and for two angel investors to talk about how they see companies that come to them, how they see business plans, what they look for, what works, what doesn't. One of the things I'm going to ask Gail is, if she had been first to see Charles's plan, would she have funded it? Or did she benefit that she saw it second? And same for you, Glen. So very quickly, our entrepreneur today is Charles de Gaspé-Beaubien, who brings a wide range of experiences in the travel industry from a 20-year career. He is a welcome displaced Canadian, is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Who started and founded a rafting and jet boating company in Montreal. He later worked with the Montreal Convention and Visitors Bureau Center, worked in a series of companies both in Canada, in this country, in the East Coast, in the West, on travel experiences. So he started his company out of a vast background, which he will tell you about. Our second speaker, Glen Champagne, is an active angel investor and director emeritus, very exciting, of the Launchpad Venture Group. He is a wonderful person who gives back. We've had the pleasure of having Glen come speak at the Enterprise Center a number of times. He sits as a judge on our business plan competition. We're very, very grateful for his time and expertise. He was the one who said no, and the one who said yes is Gail Hoffman, who is an active angel investor and mentor to entrepreneurs in Boston, and is part of Golden Seeds, which those of you who probably should know is a women-owned, women-operated venture fund that has a particular interest in supporting and funding businesses where women have a majority or large,
at least 10%
at least 10% of the equity. So what we're really going to do today is Charles is going to tell his story, how he started his company, when he got to the point of needing to approach people for money, how he did it, the yes, no's, and the maybes. And then we're going to talk to both Gail and Glen about their perspective.
Great.
Charles, welcome.
Well, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Thrilled to be here. I've been on the other side many, many times, and I think it's a journey. You know, there's a lot of learning that happens along the way. I bet that in the schools today, that's what they teach the kids is, you know, entrepreneurship, how to raise money and stuff. But I never went through it, so you got to sort of hit the ground and, you know, learn as you go. And everything's a different milestone. And at some point, you know, if you're lucky enough, you get to raise money. And that's what we just did recently, so we're very thrilled. But I had to learn a lot as I went, and that's what I'll be sharing with you, the different stages of our company and what we learned. And I think, you know, every path probably looks a bit different, but in the end, I think that a lot of them are very similar. That's probably one of the things that I've learned. So probably my journey might resemble what some of you might be going through. The elevator pitch. You're supposed to start each pitch with that, and this is version 19 of it by now. We're a group booking engine. So, you know, the tagline, you know, says it all. How can you book groups online? You know, all the systems in the industry were designed so you could book one room at a time. I'm sure you've all booked a room on Expedia, but nobody's been able to book a group, and it's sort of the ignored, ugly stepchild of our industry. But it happens to be a $35 billion industry in the U.S. alone. So a very large opportunity, very difficult to figure out and fix, because if it wasn't that hard, it would have been fixed already. But we were probably silly enough to try and tackle it. A lot of it based on our background from really understanding the group business and seeing the pain points and the opportunity and seeing if we could fix it. So we started. Before I tell you a bit about my journey, I want to sort of, you know, give it a bit of an intro and maybe use some of my many advisors' quotes to help, you know, set the stage here. You know, and the first one is, you know, should I start my business? You know, I saw the movie, and, you know, Facebook guy looks really cool, and all the kids want to start a business these days, and that's all they want to be. And it's not easy. You know, this is exactly quote from one of my advisors who founded Hotwire. So I'm very lucky to have a very high-profile advisor. You know, and whenever we were at the bottom, which was for a long period, he'd say, if it was easy, somebody else would have done it. I said, don't walk in there with a PowerPoint and walk out of there with a check and then exit 3 years later. That's the movie. It doesn't happen that way. So it's easy. Somebody else would have done it. I've heard it many, many times, and I keep telling it to myself. And the challenge is, these guys know it. We're all passionate. We have our idea. We're revolutionize the world. We got passion. But these guys have seen the story over and over. So as soon as you walk in and you start talking to them, they're already looking at the negative. They see where you're going to fail, how you're not going to make it. And you have to really convince them that they can put their own money into your business because you figure it out. And the numbers speak for themselves. 9 out of 10 fail. 6 out of 10 pivot. 1 out of 40 receives money from angel investments, and that's what we did. So we feel very blessed that we're 1 out of 40. 3 out of 4 venture-backed companies don't return any money to their investors. These guys aren't in here to be your friends or be part of the journey. They want to make money. So they're going to look at you with those goggles at first, and until you can prove to them that you have a money-making idea and you can deliver it, you're just another person they meet. And I'm sure they'll tell you how many people they meet a week. They meet a lot. So it's a long journey, and you have to get to that point to get their attention. And you'll see mine. How long does it take to raise money? I actually just read this recently. It said 6 months for a great company. And great, they meant, the person's already raised money before, they have the team already that's exited. In a perfect world, it takes 6 months. In my world, I guess I wasn't a great company. It took a bit longer. Another quote, it takes 3 years to be an overnight success. It took me 3 years to raise money, as you'll see. So, when you get on this journey, can you live without a salary for 3 years? Can you, put everything aside for 3 years? That's what you're getting in. So, probably the average is 1.5 years, I bet, to 3 years, somewhere in there. It's probably the average. So, don't expect to hit the road and have a check, in a few weeks. How many investors do you need to talk to? I probably pitched and talked to 400 or 500 investors. So another quote from my advisor, you need to kiss a lot of friends. That was probably 100, 150 meetings and pitches and stuff. Some of them, sometimes you have 50 people, but you got to hit it right. You got to hit the right person at the right time mostly. It's got to be in their interest. It's got to fit their role. So it becomes a full-time job. You're trying to build a company, raise a company with no money, but you're out there really, looking and talking to investors. The good thing is every time you learn, and one leads to the other. I probably, as I said, talked to 100, 150 investors, but I probably had 50 people. There's about 5 in this room that helped me through this. So there's about 50 people that brings it to the next deal, tries to help you here. So there's a lot of people out there that will try and help you. You can't do this alone, but you're out there, and it's not fun. This is my quote actually, so I'll be an advisor. There's no fun in fundraising. They're busy. They don't return your calls. They don't return your emails. They have 50 people a day till you get to. Well, not these guys. The others.
The generic.
The generic ones. Yeah. They're inundated with people trying to pitch to them and stuff. And I'll get to these guys did return money. But it's a one-way thing until you can get their attention, and then it starts becoming two-way. So it's very lonely. And that's why the advisors and the people can help you. And then the last thing is, what's my idea worth? And I'm sorry to be negative, but an idea is worth nothing. Again, they hear 20 ideas a week, sometimes 3-4 times the same idea. A lot of people have ideas, and investors don't invest in ideas. Investors invest in companies. So until you can prove to them that you have an opportunity, you have a team, you have the traction, you have the technology, there's no risk. Now you can invest. That's what I'll invest. When you have an idea, you're really at the beginning, and there's going to be a lot of steps before you get there. So, mine started a while ago in 2009, and mine started because I lost my job. I was working for a startup in the technology world. We were automating the railways, bringing all the railways together, and we were very smart. We had $100 million in revenue, $10 million in funding. We thought, we were going to exit and be the next smartest people. Like most startups, we ran out of money, and then we started looking for more money in 2008. We had, somebody at this close that was going to give us $10 more million. the due diligence didn't go well, partly because of me, because when they heard I was a sales guy there, when they heard, well, we really were in sales, they weren't very happy. I think the CEO had told them a different story than reality. And at some point, when they do due diligence, they find out reality. And actually, that's, where we had no more money, and that's part of why I lost my job from, one of the board members, I was the scapegoat. Funny enough, that board member's an investor now, so, never give up, but I lost my job in 2008. There was no good jobs out there. Nobody was going to hire me, so I had no choice but to start my own. So in that year, what could I start overnight with, not much money? I started easybusrental.com, so part of my, travel background, and my brother was sort of doing the same thing in Canada, wholesaling buses, and had a nice little business out of it. I came home, had a few glasses of wine, bought the URL, and the next day I had a business. So didn't have much time to think about it. But I had to hit the ground running. My wife had to go back to work full time because now I had to get this thing off the ground. And again, it's no salary. You start investing in your startup, you start the journey. And then comes sort of 2 years later, and my startup has a little bit of traction. I'm doing over $1 million in revenue, but very little margin, so I'm losing money. And I keep, I have one employee. I think I've moved out of our attic, but I'm in a little office with one employee. And I'm like, I need to be doing something else with myself. It's got to be, more than buses. So I was like, group travel is my expertise. That's what excites me. So how do I get from groups to hotels and air? And it happened to be, it was the, sort of the planning for the North of Business Plan competition. So I said, I'll just fill out, the application. I'll write a business plan in January. I've got nothing else to do. They'll force me to look at, the market. What do I want to be when I grow up? Maybe I'll get an idea out of it. So I applied out of sort of desperation to the business plan competition and, wrote a business plan. So at that point, I have a small business, but no idea. I'm basically a one-man show, no technology. And start going down the path. During the business plan competition, I don't know if you remember that because Glenn was a judge. I had a vague idea of I was going to do group travel, something with semi-automated and everything. And out of the blue, because I was making enough noise in the industry, I got a phone call from one of the companies that tried what I did but failed in the past. Two companies tried to automate it. One spent $23 million, then one spent $7 million and failed. So it scared the whole industry that what we're doing is not easy. But out of the blue, I got a phone call and I said, I work for the bank now and they were trying to sell this technology. Would you be interested in it? And I obviously knew about the technology. I was like, I'm really interested in it. Can I see it? And after looking at it, it was already 5-year-old technology. It was on somebody's computer somewhere. Didn't really work anymore. But it at least put me in contact with that person who knew to put me in contact with the technology company that built the other version, who had some contacts. He was the ex-vice president of hotels for Travelocity in Orbit, so he had a lot of contacts in the hotel world. So he's like, if you can find money, I can help you, rebuild this. The opportunity is definitely still there. We made some mistakes. I can help you start it. So that one phone call, changed my life, and it changed my life right in the middle of the business plan competition. So the judges had read my business plan. I'm going to start some sort of group travel company, and then come to pitch. I'm pitching them on a booking engine for hotels. And I think I was Glenn at the end. They're like, this is not what you presented as one of the questions. So not a good thing to do in a pitch. Don't pitch to the judges something different. But it was the right thing. And I got so excited. Now I had my idea. Now I knew I had my sort of mission in life. Unfortunately, I wasn't that well prepared for the business plan competition. They give you, it was probably 10 minutes, I think, then for the pitch, and 10 minutes into it, I was halfway through my presentation. So the worst mistake to do is not go through your slides in the right order and the right time. I found that's one of the reasons I came in third place. Fortunately, third place gave you $2,000, and you're looking at my $2,000. That's what it bought me. I could buy a computer with it. But that was the start of my real journey. I now had sort of a real opportunity I wanted to go after. I had the wrong business plan, which I eventually had to rewrite. I had a few contacts. 3 people gave me their business cards that day. Glenn was one of them that came to speak to me afterwards. Another investor that I followed up, but nothing came out. And somebody else that really helped me get a lot of other contacts. And So, from those 3 contacts, I find that that's when the journey started. I also had a great pitch deck. Part of what they did as part of the training program is really go through your pitch deck. I really kid, but I think I have 20 versions of my pitch deck. That's how part of the journey, the story changes and you get better at explaining your story. And I think 3 people really tore apart my decks and rebuilt them. One of them was Phil, as part of this business plan competition. When I finished my first presentation, he's like, I really don't know what you're doing. It's like, we gotta, really rebuild this, because an investor won't even understand what you're doing. You're talking to your, travel people, and you're using travel world, and, an investor's gotta be able to understand what you do if you even want to get their attention. So, scrapped the whole deck, rebuilt it. Somebody else would help me rebuild it another time, and then Gail helped me rebuild ours, and I guess hers was the best version because it worked. I can't emphasize, out of everything that you learn, how important the deck is. It's your whole story. The business plan's important because it's in here. Nobody's going to read your business plan until you. I was going to say until you're really at the last minute. Nobody reads the business plan, but they will ask you every question that's in there. So you're supposed to have your business plan here, know every single answer. So going through the exercise of writing a business plan, updating it is very valuable. But don't care about the font or anything, because it will be at the last minute that they read it. But the pitch deck, that's your business plan. And you can Google online; it's all over the place. There's all these, there's steps in the pitch deck and what you got to talk about, and you have to get their attention on the first slide, but then you got to explain your business in 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, depending on the format. And that's how they judge you. They judge you on what's in the pitch deck and how well you're prepared for it. So I can't emphasize enough. And I had a pitch deck. I had an idea, I had a pitch deck. I was like, and I talked to clients. In my world, I called Expedia, I called Priceline. It's a small world. And I said, yeah, you build this. We want this. So I was like, I got customers. I got a pitch deck. I have an idea. I'm going to get money. And I started by, knocking at the doors of VCs mostly, thinking, this is the type of idea. I got a venture capitalist, and I need my millions of dollars. I don't know how much I need, but I need money now. And what I learned right away is I was way too early. I had no technology. I was a one-man show. I had no customers. I couldn't answer the tough questions. I can't tell you how many times the question came up and I said, well, why aren't the big guys doing this? Well, they tell me they want to buy my technology. Isn't that enough? They tell me they don't want to build this. But that question took me a year to figure out how to answer. I said, you really have to learn your industry, and that killed a few deals, including Mass Challenge. I was part of Mass Challenge, and you're one of the judges there. I think you were one of my judges, but when I pitched there, that was the question, and I could see everybody in the room. Okay, this guy doesn't have a chance. So kept going though. Talked to a lot of VCs. Way too early, but I started making some relationships, and what they told me then is, keep us in the loop, And then
You use that line.
That's the out of office reply. Keep us in the loop. They don't want to miss the next Facebook, so yeah, keep us in the loop. Doesn't cost them anything, yes, as you progress. But more importantly, they want to see if you're going to progress. So it's a whole story that you start with them. From the beginning. Okay, here's what I'm going to try and do. You're not looking for money. I should not have been looking for money then. But here's what I'm going to try to do, and I'll periodically check in, send you some emails, so at least I start showing up on your radar somewhere, and I can gain credibility. That you can see that I do what I said I'm going to do. When I was going back to my emails preparing for this, and kept sending emails. Just hey, just an FYI, just an FYI. Again, can we meet? No. Can we meet? No. Just an FYI. Till you get to having the real story. Every year turned me down. I'm probably at 40 meetings by now. My own bank turned me down. I said, Charles, you put all your money in your other companies, losing money. I have your financial statements. I can't give you a line of credit. I was like, great, but I need millions. Out of the blue, a local bank in my town saw me helping on another committee and stuff. He says, I'll take a chance on you. I'll give you an SBA loan. I'm in Gloucester. I'm used to property, fishing boats. I understand nothing about technology. I have no clue what journey a startup is, but I'll take your word for it. You would pay me back. So that was my, enough to get me excited. And then I was like, okay, well, if I cash in my 401k, sell one of my children, I can do this. So I went to my wife and I said, here's the envelope, here's what I can do. Can I cash my 401ks and stuff? And she's like, no, but if you don't do this, you'll never forgive me, you'll never be happy, you gotta do this and stuff. So I said, okay, we're doing this. So this is the honeymoon period. I had $250,000 in cash, So you start and you're excited. The project kicks off. I hired a technology firm to start building this. You're becoming real, and as you become real, you get to learn a lot more, and you get to make, your mistakes, but you have mock-ups, a prototype and everything. And I started pitching even more and more. One of the key pitches I did was, I think it was in the fall of November 2011, I pitched at Piranapon, where there was maybe 30 of us, and you don't know what to expect. There was 3 judges. Glenn was a judge. Golden Seas was a judge. It wasn't Gail, but it was Anita. And then Norm was a judge. And it was key. That morning is what changed our business. As you know, Glenn's an investor now. I got to follow up with the Golden Seas investor to introduce me to one of my first angel investors in that world. And then Norm is actually an investor now also as part of Launchpad. So the 3 judges that day, invested. And then one thing I learned that day is, Golden Seas was like, oh, we can't invest in Charles because we only invest in, women-run company. I was like, well, I have a women in my life. We want to work together again. So, and that's when I went to Anita and I said, well, my wife and I, we worked together before. We're going to work together at this again. So I had my little ace in my back pocket. She had a full-time job. That's how we could pay for this. But I was like, that was how I could stay on the radar with Golden Seeds. I made it to 10 startups to watch with Boston.com. I pitched at the Travel Technology Awards. I was on my way. I had it here. You're building, it's coming together. But I was still, a one-man show. I had this guy that first called me as a consultant. So we had credibility, but I had no team. My technology was just getting built. It was far from being proven. I had 0 experience raising money, but I was knocking the doors. No clients. I still couldn't answer the tough questions, and I had no more 401k by then. So we made it to launch, which ideally I wanted to be February 14th. I was going to launch on Valentine's Day, so it'd be a memorable date. Obviously, we launched late. We launched March 1st. And then I ran into what every investor dreads, sort of the lack of runway. They like to invest in pools because they know there's enough capital to get you to the next milestone. And I even know what a milestone was. I kept, what are your milestones? Okay, if you give me millions now, I'll get there. And it's like, no, they see it, what's the next step? What's the next? So I hit the lack of runway, and one of my investors, saw it coming. He warned me from the beginning. So I had, an unfinished technology, so it was more of a prototype. I could do demos and stuff, but couldn't go to market. At that point, I had a co-founder, one of my, the startup that went under eventually. He joined my company as an unpaid sort of co-founder, but at least there was 2 at the table. There was, additional experience. I had big name advisors. I had the guy that found Hotwire, I had good technology advisors, I had good people behind me, rooting for me, trying to make this happen. And from these big names advisors, we started to raise our first angel money. I wasn't ready for VCs. I was, ready for angel investment. So, a few guys in the industry saying, yeah, this could work. We did well ourselves. We'll invest in, in a few. And it's basically at that point you're getting $10,000 to $25,000 from them in my world. But they're looking for, can we get $300,000 to $400,000 so you have a bit of a pop to get there. And I thought we'd get about 400,000. We got 140, so didn't get that many, and the well dried up. So kept doing more investor meetings, but I didn't have any investors I wanted to commit. I didn't have any marketing dollars. I couldn't go to market, and I had no bookings. I had an unfinished product, so it's like I was in no man's land, and I had no more money. And then after launch, the fun period started. All no's. I think for 6 months, people told me no. Every hotel I call, every investor I call, I did not get one yes for 6 months. So I call that the dark times. I don't know what you call it. I had $250 in cash in the business account. So my investors who've seen the financial statement, the money was $250, and I was keeping it alive with my other business. I had $200,000 in payables, taking the chance that more money was going to come in, and it didn't. At that point, I had a part-time CTO. She was willing to work if we could pay her, but at least I had another member of the team. And out of the blue, Wyndham, the Wyndham Hotel Group that owns Ramada and Daisy and Howard Johnson, the largest hotel chain in the world, said, it's pretty cool what you're doing here. Would you license your technology to us? And that was the pivot. I was trying to be a retailer, I was trying to be a website out there, and then the hotels didn't want to participate. But one hotel said, we're looking for technology out there, and there's about 5, 6 others, but you guys have a different take on it. You're really doing the future. Can you come and pitch? And that was sort of the Hail Mary, as my advisor called it. We had one shot of becoming real and going to the next level. So we kept meeting with them, and then out of the blue we got it. And we got really lucky because the hotels don't take chances. They buy proven systems, they buy IBM, and they're like, you're a startup, you don't have any money, but we'll take a chance on you. If you can deliver a pilot project, we'll take this on. So the skies opened up, and in November we had our meeting where we were the underdog, and next thing you know, in December they met with us again where we were at the top of the list, and in January they sort of shook our hands and they said, well, now you have 3 months to launch this. And unfortunately, what I built was not exactly what they needed. So, I was smoke and mirrors. So I had 3 months to launch what they need as a pilot project, and I had to be successful with it because that was my only chance they were going to give me. So we had to go rebuild the technology. We had no money. So I went back to the well and begged my current investors and started knocking at more and more doors. And that's in fact when you came in as a first home investor. A few more angels. So I met Gail in November actually as this was happening. So just as we're starting to see some light, some possibilities, I keep trying. So I'm going to try Golden Seeds again. Hey Anita, yeah, I still want to bring my wife into the business. Can we talk? And she's like, oh, you should meet Gail, and we have an open house coming in November. So it's like, Elisa, can you be late at work that morning? These people won't invest in us. I just need you there. So, so we go to the breakfast, and she's mad at me, and she's like, I need to be at work. They're not going to invest in us. I just need you, beside me, and just, here's the pitch deck. And so we go in, and right away, I think, I could tell. I left that meeting. We'll hear your side of the story, but I left that meeting. I said, Lisa, this is great. Now that we have a customer, now they take us for real. Now they're interested. Don't worry about it. They're not going to invest in us. Thanks. Go to work. Get an email from Gail later. Says, good. Can you come to our next presentation with Elisa? It's like, oh, great. Get another email. Can you come to New York with Elisa? And we go from there and there. So, but what happened, at that point, that period, I was semi-rich. I had the opportunity hadn't gone away, $35 billion. I had a new business model. With that last pivot, I was in licensing, and investors like that a lot better. It's an easier business to build. It's cheaper. They can know what their exit is. You can get a few clients and get real. So my investors now like the business model. I had traction, probably more importantly. It's good to say people want this. Having a signed contract changes everything. At that point, I had a team. I had my co-founder, I had Elisa on the PowerPoint presentation, and I had our CTO that would come in so they could see what a team would look like if they funded. I had some credibility. I launched on time. I talked to a lot of clients, and when they were doing due diligence, they could call those clients and they could say, is this real? Is this going to work? And my opportunity was validated by the prospects. Wasn't all there though. My technology was 2/3 finished, and I didn't have my own tech team. That's always the hardest thing. Tech was outsourced. I still had $200,000 in payables that we had to work through before we could close. But I looked real enough, and I would say it's at that point that I could start looking for money, but I had to have built the whole journey before we could get there. So speaking of building the relationship, I went back to my emails, just building this, and without sharing with you how many emails I sent in between, you can see, you know, sort of in the 2-3 years, how many times I met with Glenn, and how long it took with Golden Seeds as well. So, you know, Glenn and I go back to April 2011, and Glenn invested in July 2013. So, you know, 2.5 years I got. With the Golden Seed, it started November 11th with the Piranha Pond, keeping Golden Seeds in touch, and Gail started getting involved in November, and we closed in June. And that is with Gail driving this like you wouldn't believe. Like it looks like a long period. That is a short period. You need to have a real driver behind it, and we had our Pied Piper driving it. So. I stole that idea from Mark Zuckerberg, actually, and I can't find it anymore. I remember reading it in TechCrunch, and Mark Zuckerberg was keeping a daily journal of his journey. You know, and we've seen the movie, and it's like this. It wasn't. You know, in an entrepreneur world, it's literally like this every day. Somebody says yes, somebody says no, somebody says yes, it's going to work, it's not going to work. You know, you have no business, you have nothing, so get ready for it. But I sort of mapped mine with, you know, the red line in the middle being an okay day, whatever's on top, whatever's below. You know, and there's ups and downs. You know, one of the funniest one is when we launched Wyndham. You know, we made the date. I have a client. I launched them at, you know, midnight on April 1st, and I expect bookings at night. There's none. By noon the next day, there's no booking. So 12 hours, 0 bookings. I mean, that's it. We built the wrong technology. It's not going to work. There goes my pilot project. There goes, you know, my opportunity. And then by 1 p.m., a $265,000 booking comes in.
Wow.
You know, talk about it. And then I was real. So you can tell, though, I started in January 2009. I started looking or having my idea, probably at pivot number 2, in March 2011. Nobody would give me money, so I started going down. In September, I got my SBA loan. Things looked good. I launched, no traction. Changed the business model, got a client, and we are at an 8, I think, right now. Love what I do every day now. You know, I think the journey will still keep looking like this. There'll still be ups and downs. Far from being out of the woods, but looking good. Looking really good every day. So how does you know, the stages go? That's something that I can never really find sort of the right article and stuff. What are you going to go through? And now that I've lived it, and now it seems so obvious to me. But the first part is, you know, you're not going to get any money until you seed fund this. You got to figure out how to build this on your own. Use your own money. Hopefully have a technical co-founder, so you're not paying all the big salaries on the tech side that I had to go through. But how can you get your validation on your own? So they're not going to invest your money until you run out of money. They want to see you put all your money in there. So seed funded, and hopefully if you're smart enough, you can keep seed funding and have a business. You know, that's what I tried. I was going to do it on my own. I couldn't. So the next step is, you know, convertible debt. Get some one-off angels. Get a pool of them. You know, 5, 10, 15 of them. Hopefully you can convince them to give you some money to prove your model, get your client, and then for me that lasted, you know, 1.5 years, that stage, 2 takes, and then once you have a client, then, you know, can you really be considered to, you know, raise your Series A, and what happens after that? You know, we're trying to not raise again, or, you know, we're trying to make on that money. Is there a Series B? Is there a Series C? Hopefully not, but we'll see what the opportunities are, what the journey's like. So I don't claim to be an expert, but here's what I've learned in my journey. Don't raise money if you don't have to. You know, it sounds like it's the right thing to do, and that's the first thing people go for. If you can bootstrap and start your own business, you know, eventually you might have your own business, but if not, you'll have a business to show to them that they're going to want to invest in. So if you can, try to avoid raising money. Educate yourself. You know, go to all these things. You'll meet people. You'll learn. Read. There's a lot of great books out there. But even with all the great books, all the articles, you know, you have to live it, I guess, to learn it. If I have to raise money And in a second startup, it'll be a lot easier, let me tell you, because you know how to do it. Don't quit your day job. You know, you are going to work for no salary and stuff. In our case, my wife had to become the day job, you know. So if you have an idea, run it on the side for a while. Check with your spouse. And that was a big part of my advisor's role. Is your wife okay with this? You know, it's going to be hard, get ready. And so fortunately she knew, you know, we both were in the travel industry, so we knew what we were doing, but you know, don't go at this alone. Don't tell her everything. No. Check with her. Learn to pitch. Most importantly, probably, it's all about the pitch still for a long, long time. Figure out who to pitch at what stage. So get a lot of contacts, meet a lot of people, but I started the wrong way. I started with VCs and then went to angels in my industry. So I should have started with angels in my industry. Every pitch and every interaction counts. You know, I never thought that Frowned Upon was going to be my big breakthrough. I never thought that November meeting was going to be my big breakthrough. I messed up some big pitches in San Francisco. You show up, you're tired, you just don't have the energy when you're meeting the guy. You've been up since 5 in the morning on your flight. He's like, you leave there and he's like, you probably thought I was flat. You know, every pitch counts, every interaction counts. They're judging you on it. Get some good advisors and get people to help you. You know, it's a long journey, and these people have been through it, and they'll help you, guide you through it. How much to raise? I never knew that. I always thought you know, go asking for the millions from the beginning. It doesn't work that way. Start in your angel round at $10,000 to $25,000 a person. When you get to your Series A, you know, obviously you raise what you need to build your business, but I think 1.5 million is a sweet spot where the angel groups cannot participate in that. The VCs are interested. You know, if you can run a business in that range, I think it's a good number. Build a company first, don't chase the money. The money's not going to be interested until you have a client, until you have a technology, until you're taking out the risk. So spend as much time as you can building your business, and then it'll make your life a lot easier. Look for the relationships and not money. You know, once you get your money, you are married to the people you have. And apart from previous experience and stuff, you know, we knew who we wanted at the table. And you know, we hoped that we could land somebody like Gail. And we were very lucky. But you know, once you close, you know, she's on your board. You talk a lot, you meet a lot, and you go through the journey together. So you know, don't go for an extra, you know, $300,000 valuation or this or that. Don't sweat the small stuff. That adds up to nothing once you see what the numbers do and stuff. Find the right partner, find the right money that will be your fit. So we're thrilled. We found the right money. We found money. I would have taken the bad one a long time ago. But we found the right money, and you know, I think it'll be a great journey. And don't give up. You know, it's not for everybody to try. You know, probably most people would go through this, but you don't give up. I had no choice to give up. I was $300,000 into this. Nobody would hire me again, probably. I didn't want to work for anybody. I just had to keep going. But because I kept going, I gained a lot of credibility with the investors, with the industry, and now the journey seems a little bit better. Well, thank you.
It's a little unfair to say that Glenn was the bad guy, Gil, because he really came in at very different times. So I would just love to
Glenn was a good guy, and I made fun of it. He said, no, honestly, you know, people don't give their business card. When an investor gives you a business card, it means, I like what you're doing, I'm here to help. And Glenn was a sounding board, so we kid that, you know, he didn't invest. It's just I wasn't ready when you see that. It's not that he didn't believe in it, so. Glenn helped a lot.
That wraps up what I had to say.
But you see hundreds of these people, so talk about Charles and what it was and why you stayed in touch.
Yeah, you know, in fact, I met Charles, I think, in this room about 2 years ago or so. And we kept in touch. This is his first email he sent me, and there is a long email chain. It says, "Hi Glenn, we met quickly at the North of Boston Business Plan competition. Since we met, your name keeps coming up, as I'm sure you can appreciate. And after listening today about am I the bad guy or the good guy, I never know if this is a good thing. I was wondering if we could meet so I can share my revised pitch. Things are progressing well, and I could use contacts, advice, maybe angel financing at some point. I feel you would be a good person to keep in the loop. And that's the key here, is that Charles, over the next 2 years, kept me in the loop. Like Charles said, he does an excellent job pitching. What he did when he was here was that the business plan, like Charles said, was one thing. What he pitched was something else. And it was unclear to me what the opportunity was here. I wasn't sure, I had no appreciation of what the problem was, or how much of a problem it was. And I was very unsure what the solution was. So this was something that was just simply too early at that time. So again, I told Charles, keep me in the loop. But what I liked, and as time went on and I introduced Charles to some other folks, is that what we liked about this was Charles. So one of the things that you hear from the angel groups as well as the venture capital people is that we look at the management team. It's one of the first things we look at. And what we liked about it was Charles. Charles's challenge at the time was he was the management team. And this again is something that we look to as the businesses progress. And when I looked at his first PDF on his executive summit, what the market Charles was trying to address was he was targeting the professional group planners. He wanted to make Groupize a brand and then make the technology available to the OTAs.
Shakespeare is the world now.
Yep, and as well as travel agents. And one of the things that I learned, and one of the things I enjoy doing whenever I'm talking to entrepreneurs, is learning new jargon associated with an industry. And so what was brought to my attention was that I am a Smurf. So I apologize for not wearing blue today. But Smurf stands for, it's the industry acronym for Social, Military, Educational, Religious, and Family Groups. And so as someone who goes out west skiing every winter, we put a group together and we go out there. So I qualified as a Smurf under the social category. So looking at this through a Smurf perspective, I still didn't see what the value was to this. Because if I have to still plan my trip as, here's hotels, hotels with one piece of this, how am I going to get from the airport to the hotel, how am I going to plan my airfare, I just didn't see it. So I could go to hotels.com, hotelplanner.com, and again I said to Charles, just keep me in the loop as this thing continues to develop at this point in time. Looking back at this, Charles did identify the problem, that booking this type of group is inefficient. There's a lot of human resources that are needed back on the hotel side to get this done. There's a lot of emails, there's phones, there's faxes back in the day, et cetera. But not working in this industry, I couldn't appreciate how big a problem this was. So, he did a good job with this. The business plan kept evolving. And when we go back to the travel planners, we go back to the tour operators, some of my other colleagues who had some pretty deep experience were questioning, okay, do the travel agents become gatekeepers at this point? Are they going to be friendly with this? Are they going to be able to adopt this? The idea of creating Groupize as a brand was kind of iffy for us. We just didn't quite see that. So things tended to progress a little bit more. They continue to progress throughout 2011. We have a whole email chain. We start talking numerous times. We're going through the business plans and the pitches a number of times. But if we fast forward a little bit, and actually, going back to the original plan, I just made a note of this. This is a couple things Charles had mentioned. In his email to me, and along with that executive summary, he had said that very deep in this thing, we've had some traction from hotels interested in white label this particular technology. But it was never part of that original plan. So he'd already been thinking about that. But he also said that in 2011 he was going to do $2 million in revenue. And I start to look at all of this that I've seen, and I don't see how this is going to happen. So again, we're trying to keep me in the loop, let me know how this is going, and proceeding from there. We fast forward again to May, and one of our other colleagues at Launchpad who has extensive travel experience. And he was actually CEO of one of the airline type of companies. He began to have dialogue. So Chris writes in his email, May of 2012, if he, Charles, is after a SaaS play for hotels, this requires deep technology to really stand out. Kayak partners with hotelplanner.com to service their group hotel bookings. I'd like to know how Groupize will be a better user experience than that. Now, somewhere, and I lost track of when you actually had the demo available. It might have been around that time or so. So Charles, in one of his emails, says, look, I got this demo out there, you and Chris can take a look at this. I could never get the demo on. Could never get through. I think Chris was able to make a little further down the line, but
You have
still.
to know where to click. It wasn't finished yet.
You didn't tell them that.
Minor product nicked, you're right. And it was, again, so Charles has continued to make progress, but I can't even access the demo at this point in time. So I'm not sure where Charles is in this particular progress, but I'm seeing a path. It's continuing down that path. Back later in June, again, one of the probably 100+ emails that Charles sends me, he sends me an email with a press release. And the press release says, Groupize rethinks group travel management for hotels with automated solution for group travel planning and booking. And it's right around this time the focus starts to pivot. And this might have been pivot number 2, I think, at this point. But the idea keeps developing at this year. My colleague Chris thought that that was the right path, to offer a SaaS type of model for hotels, where people could go directly, a white labeling capability, go directly to a hotel and book those rooms that we need. So I said, again, keep me in the loop, this is starting to work forward here. Later on the year, you already mentioned,
We're not supposed to talk about the brand.
but later in the year, Charles says that they're beginning to work with Wyndham. So I'm now starting to see things that are solidifying a business plan, a viable business model, and as well as great attraction with some big name customers. So if Wyndham is starting to look at this, if this model will make sense, a SaaS modeling license we like a lot, then okay, something's happening here. So, unfortunately, what I tell Charles and I tell some other people like this is, okay, when we get that first client, let me know. And so things start to proceed there. Charles keeps telling me, okay, we're close to signing Wyndham. We're starting to move forward on an angel round. I'd like you to be part of that. And I'm thinking, okay, but I want to see some more. I want to still make sure that this is going to solidify. And that's where things start to, we start to proceed a little bit. And I think it's right around that time, late 2012, early 2013, at the point in time Gail starts to get involved. And then there's some magic that happens in the next 3 months. And then I want to come back to this point.
Sure.
When you contact me.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
I'll segue, perfect segue of the
Yeah.
story. So, in this setup, it looks like Glenn obviously didn't fund, we did. That is not how this works. The angel community in Boston is made up of 26 firms. We all know each other. I run the Boston Golden Seas office. I'm a member of Launchpad as well. So that's our business. This is not, we don't keep companies from one another. We share information. And so it's not this, he didn't fund, we did at all. It is, as you can tell from Charles's story, it's a progression. And what Charles did, which was develop these relationships. He started obviously with Glenn. He had met Anita, one of my partners, but continued those relationships throughout the process, which is what made this happen. I got to be incredibly lucky. We have at Golden Seed something called open office hours, which all of the angel groups do some sort of this meeting where we have entrepreneurs come in, we give them a 1-hour education session, and then we match them up one-on-one with one of our members. And it is a non-evaluative chance to sit down with an angel and talk about your business. It doesn't matter what stage you're at. You can be at the idea stage, you can be at the stage where Charles and Elisa were. It does not matter. I got lucky enough in November that Charles and Elisa sat down with me. I do have to mention, well, Charles says that he pulled Elisa in, given that who Golden Seeds is. Elisa was obviously critical to Golden Seeds funding, but she is critical to the business as well. So while Charles teases that he pulled it in his wife, her expertise was critical to the success of the business. Clearly not for the stages that Charles was going at before, but for building the retail side of the business, which will come, and there are a number of areas. So had someone just pulled in a woman and said, okay, now Golden Seeds fund me, it doesn't work that way. So Charles and Elisa sat down with me in November. We had half an hour together. I actually tried, I didn't have time because I got home so late last night to pull up what their pitch looked like at that point. It was a little bit tricky to understand. The only thing I did understand is I have a lot of kids, and my siblings have a lot of kids, and if two of us travel together, we're a group. We can't book on Expedia. I mean, it's really, so I understood it's a problem. I mean, that was clearly what I did. I understood in November it was a real problem. I understood that they were getting some traction, and someone was looking at them. I had Charles come in and Lisa come in and said, we're going the consumer route, we're going to build a brand. I would have said no. It really, building a brand is an enormous amount of money. Groupize will be a brand, just not initially, because you have to fund this, you have to get the hotels to buy into this. It also gives you a barrier to entry, which is something that's very important to angel groups, because once the hotel is locked in, you at least have a period of time to prove this out. So when we saw them in November, when I saw them in November, he had obviously people who did understand the business that were already investors. He didn't have a client, but he was on the way to a client. So he and Lisa obviously clearly had the passion and the industry expertise. So all of these different pieces that we look for were very important. On the other hand, at that meeting, Charles said, we don't need the angel funding to drive the business that we're already in. We can fund the licensing side of the business. We need this for the retail. And I'm sitting there thinking, no, I don't think that's actually going to be the story, but let's see it develop.
That was a real white lie.
It was
I was trying to negotiate.
which Charles negotiated through the 6 months of funding, which is, but this is, as I look back actually last night, this is a marriage. We, during our due diligence process, made over 60 calls to customers, to reference checks on Elisa, on Charles, on everyone in the management team. I did not do 60 reference checks on my husband.
Right.
I wish I had, no kidding.
I should have done that.
It's just, I did not do this much due diligence in that process. Charles has stuck with me for a long period of time. Elisa has stuck with me, and developing that relationship over this period was critical. So I got excited about this. I actually think in November I would have written a check, but that's a personal check. That is a very, very different decision than an angel group funding. And I get to do that. It's my money. It doesn't matter if I blow it. But getting an angel group to fund is a very different process. There is a significant amount of due diligence. You need to know exactly who you are and if you're right for angel group funding, because so many businesses are not, and that doesn't mean it's not a fantastic business, but you need to know, do you fit into that sweet spot of angel funding? And we have a lot of trainings that we do every month to help you figure that out, as I'm sure there are a lot of other areas that do that as well. Because you might actually be someone that only a VC is going to fund, because if you're in certain types of businesses, that is for a VC firm. There are a lot of very wonderfully growth businesses that take angel investments but never need the kind of money that we put in. And so it's really knowing that. We look at businesses that need funding anywhere from $250,000 up to $2 million for a Series A. So if you don't need that much money, don't approach an angel group. The other thing is there are 26 angel groups. We all have different areas of expertise. If you're a medical products company, you go to Mass Medical Angels. You go, there are groups that are specific to that. Don't come to Golden Seeds if there's not a woman who has a real senior executive position and also owns at least 10% of the company. So along this way, Charles and I started, and I would like to say Elisa as well, but she had a full-time job, and we were very respectful of the fact that she was the breadwinner of the family, that it was not known to her company at that time that she might leave, and we were very respectful of that, and didn't want to blow it if this didn't work. So we worked together in terms of getting what we really need to see in terms of a pitch, which had obviously been worked on before, but continued to need some refining. So brought them into our screening process. It went well. Additional people got excited so that they came to our Boston Forum. Golden Seeds is a national network, so if you come in and it's successful and you need a large amount of capital, you then need to go to our other offices to be able to raise that much money. So it was a 6-month process. During that time, we spent a lot of time on the phone together. And had Charles not been as organized, as prepared, as tenacious, this would not have happened. During that 6 month, we hit one major roadblock and some minor ones. But that's where I got to see how he operated. It was during the really critical roadblock that I was really ready to shoot a couple people, that Charles was so even keeled and dealt with it in a way that I couldn't deal with it. I don't think as maturely. But going through that, knowing that, okay, this is someone that we're going to be married for a period of time, I now know how he operates. I now know how Elisa operates. It's having that time. During the due diligence process, I talked to Glenn, I talked to Chris, I talked to Jean, all these people at Launchpad who had known Charles for even longer. They shared with me their concerns and why they hadn't jumped right in as I did and was eager to do it, and understandably so. It wasn't the right time. I was thrilled to be on the phone with Charles or during that day when he got the call from Wyndham that said, okay, we have a deal. But we were working together already before that. I was also thrilled to be there when they got their product together for Wyndham, delivered it on time, at cost, at the cost estimate that they said they were going to. So these were all things, we were in full due diligence, but these were all things that we were being delivered as they said they would. So again, it's a story that continues to evolve. But the most critical piece is obviously the people. You will find some angels and angel groups that are actually interested. It's this horse jockey situation, and some people say that they're actually more interested in the horse. I don't believe it. It really is the people that you're backing at this early stage. So we raised $2 million. Launchpad, Golden Seeds put in about almost 1.2 of that. Launchpad came in with an additional 700,000. I mean, we do work together. So it's very good to get to know a lot of angels. And if you can't find a champion in an angel group, don't apply. Because I have to tell you, we get, in any 1 year, over 400 companies that apply, but almost all of those companies have already been sort of pre-vetted by one of our members. We have 300 members across the country. People that just apply, no one's met them, it doesn't go anywhere. And from that, if you take 100% that actually come to screening, over our track here since 2005, 3% actually get to funding. So, and then you're talking about pre-vetted to come to screening. It's a difficult process to go through. And if you're not prepared, it won't take 6 months, it'll take a year, and people lose interest, more businesses come in. So don't apply until you know someone, until you know that you're ready. It's an enormous drain on a small company. There is a lot of information that's going to be requested of you. The day that we agreed that we were going to go forward, we sent Charles a list and said, okay, we need all of this information. that can put a company under. It's a lot of time. We don't want to waste anyone's time. We're very respectful of that. All of the angel groups are. But it takes time, and it's going to take your focus away from your business, and your sales are going to shift because you have to spend that time holding it together.
Fascinating. So a quick question. You said, Charles, that you were just going to raise a Series A, and these two people said yes, which is good. Was that important that he identified how much he needed to raise just for that series and didn't portend to be able to continue to want to do additional series?
Do you want to start? Brian?
Yeah, I think it's, VCs want you to raise as much money as possible, and I think angel groups are more conservative. And that was part of the path we wanted to take. We wanted to be tight with our money, prove the market, and try to grow with this first round, and hopefully never have to raise. Everybody will tell you things happen, things take longer. They have it in their back of their mind, but the goal is not to raise again. That's beneficial for me, it's beneficial for them. That's the plan on paper. That's what we're trying to do. If I was with a VC right now, they want me to raise $4 million more right now. Burn through it, raise more, and kick me out.
Charles is dead on with this. If you're a type of business you need to raise $20 million, you're wasting your time talking to us. I mean, we're just not interested. It's not that kind of level as Gail was talking about. In Charles's case, where they're raising the Series A, I thought that was a good sign. I think the point I alluded to earlier is that when Charles actually sent me an email, said, hey, we're going to be presenting at Launchpad next month. I said, what? And so, he had mentioned that he was talking with Gail and some other people, and so Gail and I had a conversation. And the conversation that Gail and I had, and I remember saying to you, I said, these are qualifying questions. Does Charles really have a management team? Is there really a product? Is he really talking to women? And, are these things really happening? And Gail had mentioned that Alyssa had joined the management team. I said, is she really on the management team? And it was just, there was a lot of progress that had been made at that point. And I felt that now's the time. And I know the quality of work Gail does and Golden Seeds has done, and the extent that they have done. I said, all right, this is definitely a time to really take a hard look at what Charles has done and accomplishment they have done.
I want to open it to the audience, but I do have to say two things that Charles mentioned. One is the chance to participate in Piranha, which really Annette came up with the idea, and we're delighted to offer Piranha here at the Enterprise Center. But just that exposure, it seemed to me, was helpful to you. Secondly, Laura Swanson, who's our COO here, and COOs never get credit for anything because they have the dirty work. She plays a key role in the business plan competition that the Enterprise Center runs, which was another kind of touch point for you. So to the audience here, to your point, the chances to kind of try all these different things has value, right?
Yeah, it's all running from one opportunity to the other, and you never know who in the room is, even with the badges and stuff. There's always somebody that knows somebody that is incognito, and you'll just meet that one person out of one event. So you get up at 6 in the morning, you go pitch in front of 30 people, you expect nothing, and that gives you one introduction, that gives you another introduction, that gives you another. And there's, I think, value in persistence, and people seeing you, like, I saw him here, getting your name out there. So grab every opportunity you have to pitch and get in front of people.